A forgotten mother trying to raise her twin girls in the street. Unfortunately, the man who left her behind returned, transformed and determined to make things right. The sun beat down on the dusty streets of the city, casting a harsh glare over the makeshift stalls and scavenging children. Amidst the chaos, a young woman, Elara, sat with her twin girls, Arya and Luna, huddled around her. They were a familiar sight in this part of town, with their tattered clothes and pleading eyes. Alara's beauty had faded, worn away by the hardships of street life. Her once luminous skin was now dull, her eyes sunken from lack of sleep and nourishment. As she rummaged through a nearby trash can, her girls watched with wide eyes, learning the art of survival. Arya, the more adventurous of the two, climbed onto a crate, her blonde pigtails bouncing with each movement. Luna, on the other hand, clung to Alara's leg, her big brown eyes watching the world with a mix of fear and wonder. Elara's heart ached as she gazed at her daughters, wondering how her life had taken such a drastic turn. Years ago, Elara had been in love with a man named Marcus. He was charming, handsome, and had promised her the world. But when she became pregnant with the twins, he vanished, leaving her to fend for herself. The pain of his abandonment still lingered, a raw wound that refused to heal. As the day wore on, Elara's thoughts turned to the present. She needed to find a way to feed her girls, to keep them safe and warm. She spotted a food vendor nearby and made her way towards him, her girls in tow. The aroma of grilled meat wafted through the air, making their stomachs growl in unison. Elara negotiated with the vendor, exchanging a few hours of labor for a warm meal. As they ate, Elara's mind wandered to Marcus, wondering what had become of him. Had he moved on? Did he ever think of her and the daughters he had never known? Little did Elara know, Marcus was about to reappear in her life, transformed and determined to make amends for his past mistakes. Marcus stood outside the rundown apartment he used to share with Elara, his eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. It had been years since he left, and the guilt had been eating away at him. He had made a fortune in the tech industry, but his success meant nothing without the people he loved. Marcus's thoughts turned to Elara and the twins. He had often wondered what had become of them, if they were safe, if they were happy. As he turned to leave, a chance glance caught a glimpse of Elara and the twins on the street corner. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. It was them. He was sure of it. The resemblance to Elara was unmistakable. He watched, frozen, as Elara interacted with the food vendor, her girls by her side. Marcus felt a pang of regret, seeing the state they were in. He had left them to fend for themselves, and it seemed they had been struggling ever since. Determined to make things right, Marcus approached Elara, his eyes locked on hers. Elara, sensing a presence, turned, her eyes narrowing as she took in the man standing before her. Marcus's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. Gone was the carefree young man she had known. In his place stood a confident, self-assured individual. "Elara," Marcus said, his voice low and husky. "It's been a long time." Elara's response was cautious, her guard up. "Marcus, what do you want?" Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself for the journey ahead. "I want to make things right. I've come to take care of you and our daughters." Elara's eyes flashed with anger as she regarded Marcus. How dare he show up after all these years, thinking he could just waltz in and fix everything? She had managed without him, struggled and fought to keep their daughters alive. The resentment she had harbored for so long bubbled to the surface. "You think you can just appear out of nowhere and expect everything to be okay?" Elara's voice was laced with venom. "You've missed out on so much, Marcus. You've missed out on their birthdays, their first steps, their first words. You don't know them, and they don't know you." Marcus nodded, taking the brunt of her anger. "I know I've made mistakes, Elara. I'm not here to erase the past or pretend it didn't happen. I'm here to make amends, to be a father to our daughters and a partner to you." Elara snorted, her expression incredulous. "A partner? You think you can just step in and be a partner after abandoning me?" Marcus's words hung in the air, met with Elara's skepticism. He couldn't blame her. He had given her every reason to doubt his intentions, but he was determined to prove himself, to show Elara and the twins that he was committed to being a part of their lives. As they stood there, the sounds of the city swirling around them. Marcus noticed the twins watching him with wide eyes. Aria, the more outgoing of the two, took a step forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Mama, who's this man?" she asked, her voice laced with a mixture of fear and fascination. Elara's gaze softened slightly as she looked at her daughters. "This is your father, girls. Marcus." Luna's eyes lit up with excitement, but Aria's expression remained cautious. Marcus knelt down, his eyes level with the twins. "I'm so sorry I've missed out on so much," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to get to know you both, to be a part of your lives." The twins exchanged a glance, their faces a mirror image of each other's uncertainty. Elara watched, her heart aching with a mix of emotions. A part of her wanted to believe Marcus, to trust that he would be there for them, but another part of her was terrified of getting hurt again. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow over the city, Marcus stood up. "Can I take you all out for dinner?" he asked, his eyes hopeful. "I'd love to spend some time with you, get to know you better." Elara hesitated, unsure of what to do, but something about Marcus's expression, a deep-seated sincerity, made her nod. "Okay," she said finally, "but just dinner. Let's take things slow." As they sat down at a small family restaurant, the twins' eyes widened in excitement. They hadn't been to a restaurant in months, and the smell of freshly baked bread and roasting vegetables was heavenly. Marcus smiled, watching as they devoured their meals with gusto. Elara, too, seemed to relax, her guard dropping slightly as she laughed and joked with Marcus. For a moment, it felt like they were a normal family, enjoying a quiet dinner together. Marcus asked the twins about their interests, listening intently as they chattered about their favorite games and cartoons. As the evening wore on, Elara found herself feeling a sense of unease. This was all too easy, too comfortable. She didn't want to get used to it, didn't want to rely on Marcus only to have him disappear again. But as she glanced at the twins, seeing the joy in their faces, she knew she had to consider their happiness too. After dinner, Marcus suggested they take a walk in the park. The night air was cool and refreshing, and the twins ran ahead, laughing and playing tag. Elara and Marcus walked side by side, the silence between them comfortable. As they strolled, Marcus told Elara about his journey, about the mistakes he had made and the lessons he had learned. Elara listened, her expression softening slightly. Maybe, just maybe, Marcus was genuinely trying to make amends. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Marcus took the twins on outings, played with them, and read them bedtime stories. Elara watched, amazed at the transformation in him. He seemed genuinely invested in being a father, and the twins adored him. But as the days turned into weeks, Elara began to notice cracks in Marcus's facade. There were moments when he seemed distant, preoccupied with thoughts she couldn't quite grasp. She caught glimpses of frustration in his eyes, a flicker of uncertainty that made her wonder if he was truly committed to this new life. One evening, as they were getting ready for bed, Elara confronted Marcus about her concerns. "You're doing great with the twins," she said, her voice soft. "But sometimes I see this look in your eyes like you're not really here. What's going on, Marcus?" Marcus's expression faltered, and for a moment, Elara thought she saw a glimmer of the old Marcus, the one who had abandoned her without a second thought. But then he smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I'm just figuring things out, Elara. Being a father is a lot harder than I thought it would be." Elara raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You're not exactly selling me on this whole changed man thing, Marcus." Marcus's eyes lingered on the twins' bedroom door, his mind heavy with secrets. He had told Elara he was figuring things out, but the truth was more complicated. His return was not just about making amends for his past mistakes. It was also about redemption for a specific reason, a reason he hadn't shared with Elara yet. As he turned back to her, Marcus's expression softened. "I'm trying, Elara. I really am. But there's something I need to tell you, something that might change everything." Elara's eyes narrowed, her guard rising. "What is it, Marcus?" "You're starting to scare me." Marcus took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "It's about why I left. Why I really left." The air seemed to thicken, anticipation hanging like a challenge. Elara's voice was barely above a whisper. "Go on." Marcus hesitated, unsure of how to begin. He had kept this secret for so long, hidden it behind a mask of indifference. But now, with Elara and the twins depending on him, he knew he had to be honest. "I didn't just leave because I was young and stupid," Marcus said, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I left because I was scared. Scared of responsibility, scared of failing you and the twins. But most of all, I was scared of my own family." Elara's eyes widened. Confusion etched on her face. "Your family? What does that have to do with anything?" Marcus's eyes dropped, shame washing over him. "My family didn't approve of you, Elara. They didn't think you were good enough for me. And I let their opinions dictate my actions. I let them drive me away from you and the twins." The room fell silent, the weight of Marcus's words hanging in the air. Elara's expression was unreadable, her eyes fixed on some point beyond Marcus's shoulder. Elara's mind reeled as she processed Marcus's revelation. She had always known his family was wealthy and influential, but she had never suspected they were the reason behind his departure. "Your family," Elara said finally, her voice measured. "What exactly did they have against me?" Marcus sighed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of his family's expectations. "They thought you were beneath me, that you came from the wrong side of the tracks. They didn't think you had the right background, the right connections." Elara's eyes flashed with anger. "And you listened to them? You let them dictate our lives?" Marcus nodded, his eyes downcast. "I was young and stupid, Elara. I didn't know what I wanted, and I let my family's opinions cloud my judgment. But I'm trying to make it right now. I want to prove to you and the twins that I'm committed to us, to our family." As Marcus spoke, Elara saw the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine remorse. She knew that people made mistakes, that they grew and learned from them. But could she trust Marcus again? Could she trust that he would stand up to his family and prioritize their little family? The question swirled in her mind like a vortex, pulling her under. Elara knew she needed time to think, to process everything. But as she looked at Marcus, she saw the twins' father, the man who had the potential to be a good partner, a good father. The days that followed were a mix of uncertainty and cautious optimism. Elara watched as Marcus continued to be a devoted father to the twins, showering them with love and attention. She saw the way Arya and Luna adored him, the way they lit up in his presence. As for Marcus, he was determined to prove himself, to show Elara that he was committed to their little family. He took on more responsibilities, helping with household chores and cooking meals. He even started attending parent-teacher conferences at the twins' school, taking an active interest in their education. Elara couldn't help but notice the change in Marcus. He seemed more confident, more self-assured, and as she watched him interact with the twins, she saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. Maybe they could build a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and adventure. One evening, as they were putting the twins to bed, Marcus turned to Elara with a tentative smile. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. Elara nodded, her heart skipping a beat. "What's on your mind?" Marcus took a deep breath, his eyes locked on hers. "I was thinking, maybe we could start fresh. You know, leave the past behind and start anew. What do you say?" Elara's heart skipped a beat as she considered Marcus's proposal. Start fresh? Leave the past behind? It sounded almost too good to be true. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity there, the genuine desire to make things right. "I don't know, Marcus," Elara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been hurt so much already. I'm not sure I can just forget everything and start over." Marcus nodded understandingly. "I don't expect you to forget, Elara. I expect you to forgive. And I promise to do everything in my power to regain your trust, to prove myself to you and the twins." Elara's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at Marcus. She saw the determination in his eyes, the willingness to work through their issues, and she knew that she couldn't give up on him. Not yet. "Okay," Elara said finally, her voice firm. I'll try. I'll try to forgive and forget, to start fresh with you." Marcus's face lit up with joy, and he pulled Elara into a tight hug. "Thank you, Elara. he whispered, his voice full of emotion. Thank you for giving me another chance. As the days turned into weeks, Elara and Marcus worked tirelessly to rebuild their relationship. They attended therapy sessions together, learned how to communicate effectively, and slowly but surely, they started to heal. The twins, sensing the change in their parents, began to blossom as well. They laughed and played, their smiles brighter than ever before. And as they grew closer as a family, Elara realized that she had made the right decision. One day as they sat down for dinner, Marcus turned to Elara with tears in his eyes. Thank you, he said, his voice choked with emotion. Thank you for giving me another chance. I promise to never let you down again. Elara's heart swelled with love as she looked at Marcus. She knew that he still had his flaws, but she also knew that he was trying. And as they clasped hands, the twins joining in, Elara felt a sense of peace wash over her. They had done it. They had found redemption, forgiveness, and love. The moral of the story is that no matter how dark the past may seem, redemption is always possible. Forgiveness is not always easy, but it's essential for healing and moving forward. It highlights the importance of family and the impact that our actions can have on those we love. Marcus's realization of the harm he caused and his efforts to make amends show that family is worth fighting for. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching.